You are watching Leicester Till I Die TV.
Watch us on YouTube.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform.
Or ask your smart speaker
To play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Right, Chris.
Alrighty. Oh, look at me. Let me just pop me Viagra. There you go. Works every time. Good evening, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good night, goodbye. Hello, wherever you are watching in the world. Welcome along. This is LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for joining us, whether you are watching on YouTube or listening via your favourite podcast platform via Talk Sport. If you're watching live, please join in with the chat and add your thoughts and comments. All we ask is obviously that you do keep it respectful. And you can also find us on all the socials, TikTok, Instagram are the two we're pushing at the moment. And if you like your Leicester City facts, let me tell you, on TikTok and on Instagram only, there is the fact of the day, which goes up every day if it gets past me, you know. So thank you very much wherever you are joining us from. Look, you would think that the best place to go and get a shameless plug from would be B&Q. No, it's here. Let me show you my little... There we go, look at that. Art of Football. Check them out. They are on YouTube. They are on Tweet. Well, they're on everything. I mean, mainly they're on, well, X these days, isn't it? Facebook. Art of Football, the website, artoffootball.com. They are launching tomorrow at 1 o'clock some very special new Leicester wear. Now, if you have been following me on Twitter, I have been retweeting a little teaser or two that they have been putting out, but it's coming out 1 o'clock tomorrow. And can I say this arrived yesterday, and it has already got Wetherspoon's baked beans on it. What can I say? You think my mouth would be big enough, wouldn't you? But unfortunately not. But we're looking at what it says there, which is the Plymouth review. It does feel like tournament football at the moment. You know, you finish one game, you go off, you have a shower, you come out, and there's another game waiting for you. They're like buses. Do you know what I mean? It's like the prostitute that goes down the bus station. You wait for, gives a hand job to all the drivers. You wait for one, and you know the rest of it, don't you? You know the rest of it. John, good evening. How are you? Stephen's in. Hello. And Duncan is in as well. Good evening to you all. Also in is, John's just said, all Plymouth need to do is defend well, flood midfield and score a worldie. Don't give them any clues. Chances are they'll beat us anyway. Anyway, let me bring my wise old owl in first of all. There he is, Craig, all his glory. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good, thanks very much. Yeah, it's funny you saying that was baked beans, because I thought that AOF stood for another old fart.
Hey! I'll give you that one. I will give you that one. If anybody is watching from Art of Football, do not send anything to Craig. He just made a mess of your AOF. But no, they are very, very
That looks
generous.
good. It looks good. You wear it well, as Rod Stewart once said.
He did indeed. Thank you very, very much. But no, they do some really good stuff. And years ago, they did a T-shirt of Jamie Vardy when he scored one of his goals in the 15-16 season. They're brilliant at what they do. So, but anyway, thank you. we are also joined by Joe. Let me bring him in. He's an Argyle fan. Oops, there we go. Let me just change that round because you can't see him at the moment, can you? There he is.
Some would say that's a blessing in disguise.
Very rude of me to do that to our guest. But good evening, Joe, Plymouth fan. Your details are in the description below on YouTube, but tell people where they can find you.
Pretty much all the same platforms as yourselves, by the sounds of it. We are part of the Talksport Fan Network, Green and White Podcast, or if you check us out on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, I think we're there as Argyle Life 1886. So yeah, follow us up. We'll be live on Saturday night post game, probably drowning our sorrows a little bit, but I'm sure we'll get into the bits and bobs of that in a minute.
We will see you there if you're drowning your sorrows. And Duncan, sir, how very dare you? He says it stretches well. Yes, it does. I went for a size bigger so you can't see me moves. I'm not going to lie. And Spencer is in. Hello, Spencer. How are you? Right. So let me just set this up. And then if I do that and that, hopefully above, we will see the graphics as we go through. And I think this is one. Well, it is. I think it is. It is one of your colleagues here. Said you're looking radiant.
Evening, Aaron.
He's keeping it at that. He's keeping it at that. Look, you started something now, Craig. You started something. I was talking. I think it was Aaron I was speaking to on Twitter, and he did actually. Because you had a good win a couple of games ago, and I did compliment him on that. And he said, not bad to say that you had us down for relegation at the start of the season. Yes. I mean, I hope you don't, because I do it's like Luton going into the Premier League. And no disrespect, I don't think of us as a big club, even with what we've done recently. We know we're not a big club. And I like to see clubs that maybe live that dream a little bit. How are you feeling about the relegation area?
I felt a lot better about it about 10 weeks ago than I do now. It's where we expect it to be. I keep saying this all the time on our podcast. I say it to everybody, you talk to in the pub, in work, whatever. We do have to remember our place in the food chain a little bit. And we do have the 24th biggest budget in the division, which is lower than Rotherham's. So already this season's a positive because we're not going to finish above them, or we're not going to finish below them. So we've already outperformed. Yeah. We're already going to outperform our budget. But look, we're an ambitious football club, and we had, I think it was quoted, the 13th or 14th biggest budget in League One last season. And we went and won the division with 101 points. We're ambitious. We love to outperform ourselves. We love to outdo ourselves. Being back in the Championship after 13 years has probably been a little bit of a reality check for everyone. It certainly isn't the division that we left back in 2010. Because, the previous manager, who we'll touch on in a bit, sort of alienated himself to the fan base a little bit by constantly belittling the club, talking us down all the time. But to not try to sound like him, we are up against some enormous football clubs. Like we're a big football club in our region, don't get me wrong, and we travel immensely well given how far it is for every away game.
Yeah.
In terms of the Championship, we aren't one of the big boys. We were a big club in League One. I think we were one of the big fish in a small pond. Now we are a very small tadpole in the Atlantic Ocean. It's a mini Premier League. And I think to still be in the position we are with 4 games to go and it to be totally in our hands, that's a remarkable achievement.
Yes.
And, we could have done without playing a team who are gunning for the title. Who look like they're going to get 100-odd points, but that's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? So,
who's that? Thought you were playing us, not Ipswich.
It's the nature of the beast, and we're going to give it everything we've got. And it would be a real shame if the 13 years hard work getting back to this stage is undone in just one season.
Yes.
But my God, it's been one hell of a journey, and we've had some unbelievable moments across the way. Putting 6 past Norwich at home.
Yeah.
Beating Sunderland at home when we played them off the pitch that day. We had an unbelievable 3-3 draw against Watford on New Year's Day in the most biblical, apocalyptic conditions. And we've also had some great days out. I know it finished 4-0 at the King Power, but to go to stadiums like that, back to Allen Road in a league fixture, St Mary's in a league fixture, that's what the Championship's all about for a club like Argyle.
Yeah.
So we've enjoyed it, but we'll enjoy it even more if we get another crack at it next season.
I'm sure you will. Talking to Tadpoles, Craig, 1-1. Joe said there about expectations. I know, and we're going to come on to our recent form in a bit, but going back to the start of the season and what we were expecting then, I remember saying at the start of the season, my heart said top 2. My head said playoffs, maybe just outside playoffs, even for our first season down here. So really, when you look at it like that, it hasn't been a bad season.
No, not at all. I think it's it's exceeded our expectations, that's for sure. But then, like we did in the Premier League as well, we become victims of our own success, and the fan base starts to expect rather than hope, and that's where it all comes crashing down a little bit. As soon as you start slipping off that little pedestal that you've put yourselves on, then it's all doom and gloom. The fact is that we are still in charge of our own destiny. We're still top of the table, and there's 6 games to go. I think we'd have all taken that. It's just what's happened in the last few weeks, and some of the performances we've put in has shaded and tarnished, what has been overall a really good season.
I mean, I've a few weeks ago, just before the Easter holidays, I had a Leicester fan, a Leeds, and Ipswich, and a Southampton fan all give me the predictions for the rest of the season. Suffice to say, the Leeds fan didn't think they'd lose between now and the end of the season, so that's gone out the window, hasn't it, Leeds fans? Hey, but out of the 12 points they've played for so far, Ipswich have got 7, we've got 6, Leeds and Southampton 5. As John said there, who would have thought 3 teams going for promotion would fail to score in midweek? I mean, we have fallen. All right, we've fallen off from the 17 points, but I think Enzo said, and I think we all probably accepted, it was never going to be like that till the end of the season. But we've fallen off the pedestal a little bit, but so have the other 2.
Yeah, I think maybe not Ipswich so much, but I get the feeling that ourselves and particularly Leeds are coming to terms with the fact that it's a long old bloody season in the Championship. We've played 50 games already with another 6 to go. By now in the Premier League, they'd have been on the beach after that many games. We're getting into that period of the season where they're having to drag up every last ounce of energy, and the fixture list, just comes quicker, faster, and harder than ever before. The fact that we're playing, Friday, Tuesday, Friday, and then we've got another game coming up. There's no respite. As Maresca said in his press conference the other day, I don't think anybody else has had such a short gap between games and then both be away from home. So we've had, a lot of travelling to do and that as well. So I think it's all just catching up with the players, to be honest. And I know we can all say they should be fit, they should be up to it. But I don't think they've played at this intensity for this long, for a long, long time. And I think that's why we're seeing now that they're kind of running on fumes a little bit. And it'll be whoever falls over the line, I think.
Well, quite possibly. Joe, when did you last play? When was your last game?
Tuesday
night. Yeah. I mean, it's stupid, isn't it? I mean, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days. you know, I called it tournament football earlier, but when you're in like Euros and World Cup, you at least get 4 days between games.
And you're not travelling either.
Well,
And it's invariably it's nicer weather, and you get a bit of sun on your back in between the games as well.
I do. Obviously, you do travel everywhere. You know, when you have an away game, it's traveling. It's not just down the road, is it?
No, and you know, we're somewhat well, I say we're somewhat fortunate. I mean, this season at the start of the year, they committed that they would fly to most games, but a club in our position, we could actually only afford to fly one way. So we'd fly up to a game, but then they'd have to get the coach back after the game on a Saturday night. So either way, it's sort of half and half. I remember earlier in the season, we played Watford, first away game of the season, and the club had this grand idea that they'll go on the train to Paddington from Plymouth, and then get the tube across to their hotel and what have you. It was a really good idea up until the point that Great Western cancelled the train they were on, moved them to the train that was an hour later, which was fully booked, and the players actually had to sit in the aisles of first class and standard class to get all the way to Paddington. That's a true story. And they went out the next day and battled for a 0-0 draw at Vicarage Road. So, you know, it's not all, whilst we love the area we live in, and it is a beautiful part of the country, it's a bloody long way away from everybody. Like our closest game this year is Bristol, and that's 2.5 hours one way, 2.5 hours the other. So
I did read that we're flying down today, but we're getting the coach back as well tomorrow. So I think
we have to be careful of money. We don't want to upset anybody, do we? Overspending, Craig.
Exactly. I think if it's another bad performance, we'll be on the mega bus.
Yes, I think at least, Joe. At least the train wasn't cancelled.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you were going to say. There was a strike on or something.
There is that, and of course the other thing as well. Even if you are flying down, it's still going to be an hour on a coach because the only two airports nearby are Newquay down in Cornwall or Exeter. So there's still going to be an hour on a coach either way. But you know, it's just, I suppose it's one of the quirks of Argyle being in the Championship, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah. Yes. Now I've already made one mistake. I went on Google this morning and was informed by Mr. Google that Ian Foster was your manager and had been since the 5th of January. And I obviously didn't know, but you informed me before the show, thankfully, so I didn't look a complete idiot. Can I just say we've got Tom in, I presume he's a Leeds fan. I'm not sure. If we bottled it, what have Leeds done? They got so excited when they were top for one game, and it was 2 weeks, but there was only one game, and they were top by 1 goal. They were ejaculating everywhere. I mean, Leeds fans, and now, well, premature ejaculation, isn't it? So, anyway, I do apologise. I don't always get on with all the Leeds fans, but no, he's no longer with you.
No, we took the decision on Easter Monday after a home 0 defeat against Bristol City to relieve him of his duties after just 3 months. There's been a lot of talk on all the forums, the fans pages, the social media pages and things about. There was rumours beginning to circulate about a month before that perhaps all wasn't well in the dressing room, and a couple of players had just disappeared from matchday squads, and they were being told to train with the youth team, and there were rumours of all sorts of things going on at the club. And unfortunately, whilst you never can trust every rumour, unfortunately, there's no smoke without fire, is there? And unfortunately, the fire grew and grew and grew, and so did the smoke. And in the end, the football club had to make the decision really to give ourselves one last chance, I think. We were pretty limp before the Easter break. We went down with a whimper at home to Preston, and that was probably about as toxic as a home atmosphere has been for a long time at Argyle, because we've had 5 great years, really, since the relegation to League Two back in 2019. We've had some unbelievable times, really. Quick promotions and great cup runs, etc. So it's not all been plain sailing this year, and it was just a case of giving ourselves one last real chance at this, because it was clear over the Easter weekend that you know, I don't necessarily subscribe to the fact that players weren't putting it all in, but as soon as we concede, we're probably the softest touch in the division. You know, we really are soft, or we were soft, shall I say. So we went behind, we took the lead at Norwich. We looked okay for 45 minutes, and then they brushed us to one side really in the second half. That ended 2-1 on Good Friday, and people had already made up their mind that, look, they're not going to sack him. We just got to get on with it, and what will be will be. And Easter Monday against Bristol City, they came out all guns blazing for 20 minutes and tried to put them to the sword, and we couldn't score. And when you are on top like that in a league like the Championship, it's not as forgiving as League One. You're not going to get another period in the division where you can get back on top. So Bristol City came out second half, did a number on us, finished 1-0, and it was pretty clear then that, you know, whether they wanted to or not, a decision had to be made. So yeah, after just 16 league games, I think it was, just 3 wins, 9 defeats or something, they had to give us one last chance.
And as a fan, do you agree with that decision?
I don't want us to become a firing club. That's the one thing I don't want us to be. We've grown a reputation over the last few years that our managers, and unlike the last two who up sticks and leave halfway through a project, you know, we don't tend to sack managers. I think that before Foster, we sacked Derek Adams in 2019 with 1 game to go when we got relegated. And before that, the last manager we sacked was all the way back in 2012, I think. So we'd gone a period where we hadn't sacked managers. So, but ultimately, at the end of the day, lads, you know, there's so much on the line next season in this division. The TV money this year is, what's it this year? 4 million or something, 4.5, 5 million, something like that. That almost doubles next year. And if we go down to the Championship, you know, or go down to League One, sorry, it drops to 900 grand. And when you've just announced 25 million pounds worth of infrastructure projects on 2 new training facilities, one for the first team, one for the academy and the women's setup, you can't afford to just throw away 5.3 million in TV revenue like that without your ticket sales, your hospitality and all of that stuff. So it just became a financial decision. Are they to weigh up against a loss of 5.3 million in revenue guaranteed against the termination of a contract of one person? Because,
and you've only got 5 games to go. Is it like a call to Warnock, or you were saying before you're director of football and first team coach? Are they there till the end of the season, or are you getting an interim in, or?
No, they're into the end of the season, and it's a really weird one. I'll try and keep it as brief as I can, but obviously Warnock lives 20 minutes over the Tamar Bridge. Like, when he left Huddersfield, he was at every game at Home Park until he took the Aberdeen job. He was there the other day as well, I think, against QPR. Obviously, another one of his former clubs. But it's sort of, when the news came through that Foster was going to go, you put 2 and 2 together. There's a bloke who's 20 minutes over the bridge. Not to say his whole career has been made out of this, but the last 8 to 10 years of his career has been this job. Firefighting a football club, bringing it together and keeping them in the league. It just made so much sense on a 1-month contract. And then we found out at 10 to 11 that night that wasn't going to be the case. It just looked, the thing is, we got a very clear philosophy. We got a very clear style and how things are set up, and they just wanted a bit of continuity where Neil Dewsnip and Kevin Nanscoville know this dressing room inside out. They know absolutely everything about these players, you know, on a personal level and a football level. And it was just a case that if they brought Neil Warnock in, yes, he'll have seen them play, but he doesn't know what's in here. He doesn't know what minerals the players have, whereas Nance and Dewsnip do. And, you know, whilst the romantic in me wanted one last dance, one last hurrah, in the perfect way for his career to end, it sort of made sense in a way just to give it to the 2 lads. The players have the one thing that people don't understand on a national scale is Kevin Nanscoville has been at Argyle since day dot, basically, bar the odd period away at another club in the county. And he, if you cut him open, he is the proverbial green bleeder. Like he would walk over broken glass for Argyle, and the players have enormous respect for him. And putting him in that position alongside Neil Dewsnip, who essentially has been head of recruitment and bringing all of these players to the club, it just made sense that they would be able to galvanise them, basically.
Talking about their a manager towards the end of his career was Warnock. We've got one, Craig, at the start of his career. It's been a bit of a baptism with fire, you know, I think more than it probably looks at from you know, the outside. But with everything that's gone on this season, it's not been the best first season, so we say. And when I take my post-match angry glasses off and look at it with some, you know, back at it with some sort of, you know, sensibility, you know, it's not. He's done a good job, hasn't he? Really, overall.
6 games to go, top of the league. I think you'd be very harsh if you said he hadn't.
No, there are some fans out there that don't want him.
Yeah, and you know that's those kind of people are the kind who will change their mind. You know, we go and beat Plymouth 4-0 with some swashbuckling display, and you won't hear from them. You know, they'll be, this is fantastic, this is what we wanted, blah blah blah. You can't please all the people.
Stones because all the Leeds fans are there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't please everyone, and yeah, I've been critical of him, the lack of flexibility. What I hate hearing Plan B. I was looking at some Southampton fan sort of Twitter or X streams as well. They're all exactly the same. Half of them want him out, you know, because he's got no Plan B. You know. Managers don't have Plan Bs these days. They're not going to say, right, we're a possession-based team, and then all of a sudden we're just going to start booting it up the pitch. It's not going to happen. What I would criticise him for is that kind of in-game inflexibility to just tweak things a little bit to get the opposition thinking a little bit differently. You know, we were here with Brendan, and we had the same kind of criticism of there was no change in shape, it was just changing personnel. If that player wasn't working, you know, wasn't working for him, we just put another player in the same position, rather than looking at the game as a whole over 60 minutes and saying, right, I've now noticed, I can see where the weaknesses are, where the opportunities are, let's put him here, let's move him there, and tweaking it a little bit. He was doing that earlier in the season. It doesn't seem to be doing it now, or if he's doing it, it's not working. And whether he hasn't got confidence in some of the other players, whether the players are just knackered, I don't know. You know, but some people are, you would think, would be getting more chances than they've actually had. You know, I do feel a little bit for Tom Cannon. I hope he's at least back on the bench for tomorrow night's game.
We'll come on to that later.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so it's I mean, results wise, you look at it black and white. Yeah, we're top of the table, 6 games to go. What a great job. And I think you know, he's learning on the job as well. You know, everyone, the fans, the team, the manager, everyone's learnt a lot this season. And I just hope that we can.
A lot of things you were saying there, Craig.
Sorry.
A lot of things you were saying then, though, was quite a few of the things we were saying about Brendan, inflexibility, no Plan B, etc., etc. But is there not something to be said for saying, right, well, this is my formation, I'm sticking to it, the players know what to do? You know, I mean, he moved into against Millwall, he put Dewsbury Hall on swap sides with Ndidi, and it, to my mind, just didn't seem to work. So is it not good that he's sort of inflexible? I mean, you know, there's a lot to be said for, you know, I can remember in that I think I did. I may well have said this last week. It's not like me to repeat myself, but I do it a lot, Joe. But when we got promoted under Pearson, you could have named that team that season 6, 7, 8 games in advance. The following season, when we were bottom for so long, the Great Escape, but we were bottom for so long, you could not predict what team was going to be. Somebody get a hat trick, although they didn't. But if somebody got a brace, they'd be dropped the next week.
Yeah, I did say in that bit, we were saying the same things about Brendan. We've been here and done it before. I don't know, it's funny, I've said this about, like, for instance, Mavididi. I've said it for months now. You know what kind of game you're going to get out of Mavididi within the first 10 minutes. If he's up for it, he'll go at his fullback the whole time and he'll be in the mood. And if he's not, he might as well not be there. And I think, again, you do wonder sometimes about. I think the character's there. I mean, you've only got to see the reaction when, the third goal went in against Norwich, the winner went in against Birmingham. You see that all the teams together, they're off the bench, they're all in it.
Yes,
I just think they are running on fumes a little bit, and that kind of energy, I think, is what's lacking at the minute, and to be able to play. And I think that's why we've resorted to playing a little bit slower.
yes.
People aren't playing with the same energy levels.
It's the problem that you're successful, so you're on telly, but because you're on telly, you're at weird times and very regular.
But also we play this way. Man City have found it over the years. Pep had it at Barcelona after a while. Teams work out how you play, and this is where you need to be a little bit clever and adapt your formation or adapt your tactics to counterattack them, knowing what we're going to play. Teams now will sort of sit in. We want them to press us. We want them to press us high so we can play around them, play through them and break away. As soon as the team sits back, it's like the onus is on us to do it. So that's where you've got to learn on the job, and you've got to be a little bit more flexible and try something different. Even if it's for 10 minutes of a game, start putting the ball into the channels, getting the back four turned a little bit so they can't push up high. Just trying little things to keep your opposition and your opponents on the back foot and thinking all the time so they can't concentrate on their own game.
Joe, going back to pre-Christmas, it was better times for us, and in fairness, generally better times for you. I think this might have been after the 6-0 Norwich win, but did you go to the game at the King Power?
I didn't. Unfortunately, I had the displeasure, if you like, of having to work that day. And I remember watching it.
Didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I remember watching it back, and I was thinking to myself, God, this first 10 minutes is quite lively, really. I thought we'd go there and park the bus a little bit. We were adopting the fearless nature we had at the time from Steven Schumacher, and I wouldn't say we had to go and tested the Leicester back line, but we certainly seemed like we were confident enough to try and play. And then, unfortunately, Pleggy gave away that silly penalty on 14 minutes. And I remember being I think I was on the podcast the week before previewing this game. And I remember saying that the one thing you can't do when you go into a club like Leicester, like a Leeds, like a Southampton and things, so one thing you can't do is give them an easy opportunity into the game, because then they're in complete control of it. We all believed, and we all know that the longer the game stays 0-0, the more of a chance we have, because then Leicester would have got frustrated and started running out of ideas. And you see it all the time in big games. Long balls go over the top when they're not used to it, and possessions turned over quickly. So to give Leicester a leg up the way we did was frustrating. And then I think, it was 1-0 at half time. You can see the times there, and I'm thinking, this is all right. This 1-0, I'll take this at full time. There's still every chance we can nick something from a set piece. And 10 minutes later, obviously, it was that golfing class and quality that everyone expected to be there was there.
Very quick goals, wasn't it?
Yeah. And if I remember rightly, we actually had a chance at 1-0. I think it might have been Ryan Hardy was up front that day, or it might have been Ben Wayne, our backup centre forward, or whoever it was up front was through on goal and they couldn't quite get the chance right. And I think the keeper made a block, but we couldn't lay a glove on you. And at the end of the day, if we're being realistic with the two clubs and what's at the disposal, we probably shouldn't be able to lay a glove on you. I've been very clear all season on our podcast. We're a League One team operating in the Championship until we've confirmed our survival. And it struck me that day as, like an FA Cup game between a lower half Premier League team against a decent enough League One team. That's how it looked when I watched it back. But, since then, we've had one spell of these caretakers. We've had a new manager come in. Now we're in the second spell of these caretakers. And it's, as you say, yourselves are no longer as bomb-proof as you were when we played you back in December. And we're perhaps not as fearless. And, I mean, we're certainly nowhere near ruthless, but we're certainly not as fearless as we once were.
Craig, I mean, I hate to sort of say this because this will, 75% of Leicester fans won't want to hear this, but Daka scored. And he was at that point, due to injuries, and it was just obviously coming up to AFCON, so we knew he was going, but to say injuries to Vardy, he was starting every game, and he was getting assists, and he got 5 in 6 or something on the goal side. But did you go? I presume you went to that game.
No, I actually missed that game.
No wonder we won.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I did actually miss that game, and I remember looking and keeping it
possibly on the night.
Yeah, keeping an eye on the goals going in, and thinking, bloody hell, I've missed a good one there. Well done. Yeah. So I'm not going to see Plymouth. So you need to stay up because I've not seen Plymouth play.
Well, if they do stay up, you only get to see them play if we don't go up.
Well, this is true.
Yes, you hadn't thought that one through, had you really, Craig?
Or maybe I had, Chris.
Okay, well, if we look, I mean, just looking at your season here, Joe, I mean, I think if you were in hospital with that, you'd have had the medics out giving you mouth to mouth. I mean, not a bad start, and I think I said this off camera, but Aaron, who is the other guy with you, I speak to on X, reminded me that in my pre-season predictions, I did predict for my sins Plymouth to go down. Only due to sort of squad size and money to spend, etc., etc. And you were proving me wrong. You're fighting for your life now. Looking at that, I mean, as long as you stay up, is that a bonus? Is that success for you? Just staying up?
Yeah, 21st goal difference, goals scored, goals conceded. Don't care how it happens. That's always the aim. And actually, the one thing that stands out and should stand out to your viewers is actually we're going into match day 43. We haven't spent a minute inside the bottom 3. And that's a quite unbelievable achievement, really. If you actually look, every time we've got near to every time we found ourselves in 21st, we've gone and got a result in the next game. So, I don't want to end up in 21st until the final whistle on that final day of the season, if we can help it. But look, it's you can see there the ups and downs that we've had. When we've been bad, we've been pretty bad, but when we've been good, we've earned a lot of plaudits for it because we're a young side, it's a fearless side, as I mentioned, and I said at the start of the year when we were playing against the likes of Leeds and Southampton so early in the season, it was almost a good thing because this side basically didn't respect anybody. And it was so refreshing those first 2-3 months is that we were going into games. We didn't care about reputations. The Norwich game proved that. Norwich are a decent side. They've proved that now that David Wagner, has got them, got his system into them. They're on an unbelievable run. We beat them 6-2 and we were 5-0 up inside 52 minutes. And
that
you're
to me is
thinking
probably one of the performances of the season in the
head and
championship.
shoulders our performance of the season.
Yeah.
And that was how we were. And then obviously Christmas came and Steven Schumacher left to go to Stoke, and that really derailed quite a lot of the momentum we built up. You know, the fan base, I can say it because of the podcast I'm on, the fan base have never ever got over a manager leaving after what Ian Holloway did in November 2007. And since then, they've sort of really struggled to trust managers. And Ryan Lowe up sticks and left, and that hurt. And then his best mate, Steven Schumacher, who'd built this great title-winning season last year, doesn't even see out the first season back in the Championship. It was quite hurtful. And I think that's probably what carried us through Christmas when the Neil Dewsnip and Kevin Anskville took over, is that everyone was united. It was us against the world. And in the 4 games they were in charge, we had a 3-3, a 2-2, a 2-1 defeat away at Southampton, where we had a perfectly good goal disallowed at 0-0. And then we had that 3-3 against Watford on New Year's Day. So it was entertaining because the players were carefree. The crowd was behind them. Then we had the Ian Foster reign, where it unfortunately went a bit sour come the end. But now we're back to the Dewsnip and Anskville reign. Everyone's united again. The fan base is together. It's us against the world. And look, we haven't scored. I mean, we only scored 2 goals so far in the 2 games. I'm not saying we're going to go back to scoring 9 in 4, but it's clear with the way the players are, and certainly the fan base are, everyone's pulling together again for the one outcome. And, you know, as I say, we've just got to be in that position, in this position, 21st place, when the music stops at 2:45 on the 4th of May. As long as we're above that dotted line, there'll be one hell of a celebration that Saturday night on the Barbican.
Yeah. Jamie there, Ipswich Town fan, obviously. I think Plymouth will be up for a fight. They'll be desperate for points, and I don't know if Maresca has the tactics to break down a team like that, hence what happened at Millwall. It's a good point, Craig. And when you look at the table there, it's still in our own hands. We've got a game in hand. Drum is in. Sorry, Drum, but you're down to 3rd now. I mean, who'd have thought? Somebody said earlier the top 3 teams wouldn't have scored a goal this weekend. Ipswich and Leeds must be absolutely kicking themselves, because we would if the roles were reversed and, you know, the team that's leading lost and then you can't go out and win. Technically, Southampton aren't out of it, but it looks like it's going to be the 3 battling for the 2, isn't it?
Yeah, although, you know, you've got, I know Southampton have got 2 games in hand. One of them is against us. Win those 2 and they're 3 behind Leeds. So if Leeds are not out of it, then Southampton are not out of it as it stands.
Although a lot of people seem to think they are, but I say technically they're not, are they?
No, you know, maybe they're going to go on a little bit of a run again. But as I say, I think everybody's finding it tough. I was really, really surprised that Leeds didn't get all 3 points at home to Sunderland. And I was absolutely shocked that not that Ipswich, you know, didn't beat Watford, but the fact that they didn't score. I can't remember the last time Ipswich didn't score, to be honest. And to be honest, as soon as I saw that there was 4 minutes of time added on, I thought, right, here they go.
Yes, I did that as well.
Yeah. So that's surprising. Although, you know, Watford have put up a good couple of performances. They should have beaten Leeds as well. So, you know, teams are starting to turn. I mean, and Watford's a funny team because they're not really in any danger of getting in the playoffs or going down. So they're kind of playing with a little bit of freedom now. So you can't take any game for granted. It's weird. I mean, I saw Hull outplay Leeds, and then their fullback made a stupid decision in bringing Somerville down for a penalty, and Leeds went on to win 3-1. But I don't think Leeds were the better team in that game either. I don't think any of the top teams are performing at anywhere near the levels that they were, you know, for the first half of the season. You know, we've been, as I say, as the season goes on, your opposition works out how to nullify you even more. So it makes it even more difficult. And what I would say, and I was thinking this earlier, all of this talk that we were going to get the points record and this, that, and the other. If I was wearing a hat, I would take it off to Reading, because it just shows you how bloody hard it is to get that many points in the championship. So, fair play to them for doing that. But this is going to go to the wire, and I'm not particularly looking forward to it, to be honest.
No, I actually put a thing up, and it was a great quote from the gentleman, the BBC report. I'm not sure which match he was at. I think it was the Ipswich one last night, and he said, "Does anybody want to go up automatically?" Yeah. It looks like no. We almost like we want to be in the playoffs, isn't it, for a day out at Wembley?
Yeah, it's. I can say any game coming up now, as we both know, Chris, looking at our fantastic performance in the Prediction League, it's really hard division to predict, and so you might as well just go against what you think is going to happen.
I don't know who it is, but someone has actually fallen under Brad.
Yeah,
Craig. Yes, we're rubbish at predictions here. We've got that used to knowing what we're doing in the Premier League. Joe, yeah, I mean, there's no easy games, because everybody looked at Millwall and said, "Well, you should have beaten Millwall. That was an easy game." Blah blah blah. But Millwall were fighting for their lives, because they're not out of it yet. They're only 4 points ahead of Sheffield Wednesday. A couple of bad results, and they're drawn back into it. Like we said, I know, we keep saying it, 21st is the goal for you, but how worried are you? I mean, you've got a fantastic goal difference, so that's almost worth a point for you, in fairness. You're only on you're on -9. Sheffield Wednesday -31. I mean, Rotherham we know have gone. Huddersfield -23. There's got to be there's got to be now 2 worse teams than you in that fight at the bottom. Do you think there are 2 worse teams than you?
Well, I mean, the first approach for us tomorrow night is to try and preserve that -9 as best we can, because you are right, it's worth at least a point, perhaps 2. So you look at it that way. So I've sort of looked at the teams that are around us and what they've got left. And my gut feeling is that neither Birmingham or Huddersfield can get to 49, in my opinion, with how they're playing at the moment and who they've got left. They've got to play each other as well. So somewhere along the way, either somebody's going to take points off each other, or they're not going to gain ground. So I don't think either of them can get to 49. I think Sheffield Wednesday could do. The interesting ones actually are QPR in 16th. Because the 4 games they've got left are against 4 teams on the left-hand side of that picture. Wow. They've got to play Hull, Coventry, Preston and Leeds in their last 4 games. Now, there's no guarantee that they'll actually pick up another point. I personally think they're the best team on that graphic on the right-hand side. Having seen them play down here on Tuesday night, I thought they were brilliant against us, and it was very similar to how West Brom set up, where you just stifle the midfield and control it from there. So really, I think 49 is a minimum. 48 I think is a minimum with a goal difference, because you're right, it's probably then worth 49 de facto from there. With the 4 games we've got left, obviously after we get you guys out of the way tomorrow night, the next 2 games are Stoke away and Millwall away. Now our away form is not something you want to hold your hat against.
No,
it is
in a second. Well, your home form isn't brilliant.
But you sort of look at it and you think, well, with a week's rest, because since Neil and Nance have taken over, we'll be playing 3 games in 7 days.
Yeah.
With a week under their belt going into the Stoke game, you'd like to think that they might be a little bit more prepared for that game than perhaps they might be for tomorrow night. So if we can pick something up tomorrow, it's going to put us in one hell of a position to then go into those 2 games, because the final day of the season we're home to Hull, and our hope is that they might be on the beach by then and have nothing to play for, and it's at home park, and our record at home park, although it's taken a bit of a hammer in the last, we're 6 games without a win now, that's something that we're going to have to look at. But if we can get ourselves to 48 minimum, which I think we can definitely do, but 49 is the benchmark for me. I think that might just about be enough. But one thing that is for sure, if you think your race is going to go to the final day, there's absolutely every guarantee that this relegation fight is going to go to that last whistle on the 4th of May.
How about we do a deal now that you give us the 3 points tomorrow and we make sure that we beat Blackburn on the last day?
Give us a point tomorrow.
Would you take a point, Craig? That's your favourite question.
It's not my favourite question. It's your favourite question to be asked. But
the other thing I would mention, you asked me there about how I feel about the situation. You were saying at the weekend that the three teams, the top three, didn't score, let alone didn't win. Last night, Stoke, Birmingham, and Blackburn had the chance to really put pressure on everyone at the bottom. They didn't score, and they all lost.
Blackburn, who we've got on the last day, they beat Rotherham, I think it was 5-0.
They beat Sunderland away.
Was it?
They won away at Sunderland 5-1. Yeah.
I mean, and then they went and lost 5-0.
Championship is box office, isn't it? It really is box office.
Everybody goes on about the Premier League. I mean, to my mind, this is the 6th best division in Europe. Once you get the big five, the Premier, La Liga, Serie A, and there's another one I can't think of. Anyway, but after all the 5 big ones, it is the main one. Craig, look, Plymouth's home form is 24 out of 24. This is based only on the last 5, by the way.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So don't panic. I can see you were going for me then. I'm like, backing away. No, based on the last 5, their home form is 24. Based on the last 5, our away form is 21st. Kind of says it all. But there are simply no, and I said this just a minute ago, no easy games, because if you're playing a team at the bottom like Plymouth, they're scrapping, for everything. I mean, Bristol should have been the easiest game because they were mid-table mediocrity. Having said that, they seem to have got a second win from somewhere. And it's we say about things being Spursy, but Leicestery going to Bristol and losing, but beating Norwich, who were top of the form table at the time. I mean, but at least we've stopped those red ones popping up.
Yeah, I mean, but have we?
Well, up till now we have. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we lost the last away game. We lost to Millwall. We lost to Bristol. So it's not the greatest form, is it? We were looking. Our away form was better than our home form for the first half of the season, first 3 quarters of the season, and it's turned around now. We're not scoring enough to win these games. I know it sounds obvious, but the likes when we were playing a little bit more free-flowing football, particularly away from home, where teams had to come out. The onus was on the home team to come out, and we could cut through them on on breakaways and those quick transitions. We're not doing that at the moment, and because the pace of our game has dropped off. So I'm expecting another tough game, to be honest. And I know you'll come on to formation tactics players, but you've got a couple of decent players, including a really good striker who could easily cause us some problems.
I mean, Joe there, and I was looking, I've got to apologise. I was actually trying to concentrate. I was looking at the wrong one when I said that to you, Craig. I was looking at the Plymouth one and not the Leicester. Plymouth have managed to stop the Reds coming up. I mean, Queen's Park Rangers, I mean, you beat Rotherham, which you would have probably expected to. Queen's Park Rangers, is that one you should have won at home?
No. That is one that I was, it's a weird one because going into the game, I really fancied going back to back and carry the momentum through of the great game against Rotherham and the great result, and the good vibes were back around home park, and we really were outplayed, and it was a bit of a reality check to everyone that this is far from over. Michael Cooper made an outstanding stop at at 0-0 or 1-0 to keep us in it. We cleared one off the line. They had a number of chances that they put over the bar. You know, we had a couple of little chances ourselves, and the goal comes from a corner, which is it's like gold dust for a Plymouth Argyle fan to be competitive from a set piece. And all it was basically was one of the first corners we actually drilled in instead of just lobbing it to the back post. And our winger Mustafa Bundu basically put his human shield of a defender in front of the ball. It hits his shin pads and goes into the net. So whilst it was nice to break the run of 5 straight games without a goal at home, we didn't actually technically score it ourselves. But it was an important result because it tells everyone that we are still human. We are still very much in the mire. But when you look at last night's results, had we, under Ian Foster going 1-0 down, we never got back into the game. Whereas Tuesday night, we showed a real aptitude to get ourselves back in the game. And we forced ourselves back into the game. And that was the biggest takeaway from it. And that point last night really now looks like it's worth 1.5, 2 points with the results that happened around us.
John says there, is Whittaker up for sale? I really rate him.
Depends how deep your pockets are.
At the moment, can you lend us the money to buy him? I think that's what we'd have to say. Look, going on to tactics here. I watched a very good game on TV, Joe, between yourselves and Leeds. Might have been the FA Cup game. I remember it was a very wet night in Plymouth.
Yeah, that was the FA Cup game. Same referee tomorrow night, incidentally.
Oh God! Right. Well, I can't remember whether he was good or bad on that night. What I do remember was that you put up a hell of a fight, and we were lucky, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to go to because it didn't go to extra time, if my memory serves me.
Yeah, it was 1-1, and we were sort of absolutely delighted with that. And then about 10 minutes later, it was 4-1, and everyone was heading for the exit. So
yes, was that within the 90 minutes though?
No, as soon as extra time started, Leeds' quality just came
because
through.
I do hope, and do you think this will be the case tomorrow, that you almost sort of tired? You could see the players, for me, watch from the outside, physically tiring that night. Leeds were quite, at you.
Yeah, the other thing to take out of that game was we had a number of players unavailable that night as well. We had a couple cup tied. We had a couple on the injured list as well at that period when we played that game. So it was a real, resilient backs to the wall job to try and do whatever we could. How are we going to approach tomorrow night? God only knows. Anyone who wants to go back and see what my thoughts, check out our live stream of the night, because I came up with the most draconian 6-4-0 formation where we just try and stifle everything that goes on. Don't worry about a striker. Forget playing a centre forward. But that's not going to happen because we're not ruthless. I need to stop saying ruthless. We're fearless. We don't care about reputations. And at the end of the day, it's a home game. It's on us to, it's our patch. We got to try whatever we can to do it. I hope that somewhere up there, somebody's trying to come up with a system or an idea that will outfox the Foxes. No pun intended. Well, there was a pun intended, actually. I want to try and shy away from that. I think because if we're honest, if we go out there and play the game that we've played for the previous 41 games of the season, what's the point? Because it's easy how to stop Argyle playing. You isolate Whittaker and Hardy, and then it's very difficult for us to get any service going forward. So we've sort of got to come up with a new style, if you like, and it's very tricky to do that in just 72 hours after the last game. I think the one important thing is that Tuesday night, Ryan Hardy's on 13 goals this season or something. He looks absolutely exhausted because he's under Ian Foster's style of football. He was clocking up unbelievable numbers on the amount he was running in a game because he was just isolated up front and he was having to do all the work himself. So I suspect that he may be rested tomorrow night with those two massive games coming up in the next fortnight. You know, if it was down to me, it's probably a reason it's not down to me for what I'm about to say. But if it were down to me, I'd tell him to pack his bags and go find a caravan in Cornwall for the weekend with a family and just chill out. Forget football, forget exercise. Just go and
Can
put
you
your
go
feet
sort
up.
of about 5 o'clock on Friday? Would that be okay?
Yeah, beat the traffic, Ryan. But you know, I think he needs a rest, and the only issue we've got with that is we actually only have one other striker on the books, in Ben Wayne, and he's a very young, raw, unfurnished talent. And we played him in an important game at Leeds, not Leeds, Sheffield Wednesday last season, when we were, you know, us, Wednesday and Ipswich were going for the title. And the poor kid didn't have a touch in the first 45 minutes, and we had to pull him off at half time because it was just not working. And it's sort of like, I think whoever we play up front tomorrow against your centre halves are probably going to have the most uninspiring, dull evening of their careers. Hardy will pester them if he's out there, but I just really think that to maximise our chances of getting anything against Stoke and Millwall, we need a fully fit, refreshed Ryan Hardy going into those games. But system-wise, formation-wise, it won't be any different. I wouldn't have thought to what we've deployed all season. It will be. They try to tell us it's a 3-5-2, but if we're honest, it's a 5-3-2. The wing backs do push forward, but I would imagine tomorrow night there'll be a bit more caution about that. Because, you know, at the end of the day, a point will be celebrated like a victory for ourselves. I'm not saying we're going to go out.
Leeds and Coventry were doing that.
Look, I'm not going to sit here now and tell you that we're going to go out and put in a low block and we're going to defend for our lives to get a 0-0. That's just not what Plymouth Argyle do. It's not what we've done for about 6 years. We're going to go out there. We're going to have a go when we get the chance. Because at the end of the day, we've got such a young group that believe they're good enough to be in this division, and they have to show that over the next 4 games that they still hold the right to be in this league. So it's not going to be a low block. It's not going to be sat in deep. One thing that does offer me a bit of hope, actually, is what you guys are saying about how your performances have been lately, with a loss of energy and a bit of a loss of spark. Because my big fear was that, you know, I'd be running a sweepstake in work. How many touches close to 100 in the 90 minutes are Argyle going to get? But because I just expect fast movement on and off the ball, quick transitions, things like that. But it sort of sounds like, from what you guys are saying, that might not be the case.
Craig, I mean, we're saying tired, but we did all right against Norwich. We know the formation, don't we? 4-3-3 going into 3 at the back when we're going forward, and the goalkeeper making up the sat in the middle of our own half. We're not going to have Cannon by the look of it. I mean, I don't know whether he is still injured or not, but I don't think he wants. I mean, Cannon's going to be here long term. We don't know about Iheanacho, Vardy, or even Daka. At the moment, though, we need what he's either saying in the, on the forums and Leicestershire Live. We need the experience, don't we? Or would you agree?
We need someone who can take chances. I don't care whether it's their debut or whether they've been playing for 15 years. We've squandered far too many chances in the last half a dozen games. And that's the basic facts. We lost away at Bristol and Vardy missed 2 sitters. You couldn't really call them anything else. And Daka's missed chances. Everyone's missed chances. It's not like we're playing badly. By all accounts, the Millwall game was, probably the worst performance because we didn't.
Probably one of our worst of the season.
Yeah, because we didn't really create. Most of the other games, we have created enough chances to win games. Yeah. We just haven't been taking them. So, for me, if the strikers who have had the shirt are not scoring, Cannon should get a go for me. The one thing I like about Cannon is he reminds me of the likes of old Kevin Phillips, or, if you really want to push him, Harry Kane, in that he just wants to get the ball out his feet and get a shot off. And that's what we've not been doing. We've been trying to walk it in, overplaying. Just an old-fashioned guy who, if he gets the ball anywhere near around the box, he's going to move it and get a shot off. And that's what I'd like to see, So sounds like he's fit to me from what Maresca was saying. He was asked a question about him, saying he's got no problem with Tom Cannon. He just can't pick everyone at the minute. But I think, given on the recent performances, he deserves a go. It'd be interesting for what you're saying, Joe, about the fact that you play with wing backs. That could be where this game's won and lost then in terms of whether we exploit the space in behind the wing backs with two, wingers that on their day can beat anyone. They don't have enough days is the problem. But if we can transition the ball out and get them involved quickly, we did it against Norwich really well. One of our best performances that as soon as we got the ball at the back, we were pinging it out to the wingers and exploiting the space before Norwich were able to get themselves back into shape. And we looked much more dangerous doing it. So if you're playing with wing backs who want to push on, then that could be a tactic that would reap rewards for us, to be honest. And then obviously if they have to adapt to that and sit back, it means that we should have more possession in front of you. So sounds like where the game may swing, to be honest.
Just saying here, he was asked in the press conference, Enzo, missed chances over the past few losses are concerned for Maresca. And he came back with, do you think Jamie Vardy wanted to miss chances against Bristol City? They want to score, no player wants to miss, but it happens. I mean, it's basically, he's right, isn't he? No player goes out there to
no,
miss,
but
it happens.
But confidence at whatever level plays a massive part in football. It doesn't matter whether it's you're playing out on a Sunday morning in front of goal or you're playing at the very highest level. If you're a confident player, you take the chance, or you realise the time that you have and you take an extra touch. If you're not, you start snatching at things. And I think we've seen that with Daka. The header he had at the end of the last game, totally mistimed. I think against Leeds, trying to pass the ball instead of shoot, that to me is a player who is not playing confidently. And of any position on the pitch, your striker has to be confident. And if they're not going to be scoring.
No, you're right. But then again, not just strikers. Yunus, was it against, I forget who it was, against Birmingham, I think. He absolutely totally hooked one up, trying to walk it in. But then again, he redeemed himself 5 minutes later with a superb cross. We're not going to pick the team, but I do want to ask you two things, Craig, about two positions. Who do you start up front tomorrow? If you're put yourself in Maresca's, shave your head, put yourself in Maresca's boots, who do you pick up front?
Cannon.
You go for Cannon. And at the back, are you starting with Doyle or are you starting with Justin?
Based on what Joe said about how they play, I'd play with Doyle because that accuracy of his passing, the longer pass in behind fullbacks in for the wingers. Again, that's he didn't have a particularly great game against Birmingham, and I think he was switched, but he had a really good game against Norwich, and he was integral to us playing a lot quicker and switching the play. So if that's how Plymouth prefer to set up, then I would say Doyle.
We will be back in 1 second with Bean at both. I'll give you two guys a chance to think who that might be. I know, Craig. You should get this one, Craig. I think you definitely should get this one. And we'll do it straight after this.
The TalkSport Fan Network is the ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts,
including Leicester Till I Die, independent analysis and reaction for the Foxes faithful.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
Unbeatable club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Follow the podcast on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Craig, been at both. That's what it's called. Who are you going for? It's not Howard Wilkinson. I can promise you that.
Well, I tell you what, I thought of two players before we came on air, and then Joe said a couple of people, and I think it may be one of them, to be honest. The players I thought of, I can't even remember whether one of them played for you. Did Barry Hales play for you? Yeah, I thought he did. And the other one that I thought of who came from Plymouth to us was Tony Spearing, I think. But I would imagine, knowing you, Chris, that you've gone for Ian Holloway.
Anybody you'd like to have a guess at, Joe?
Well, yeah, Barry Hales is a bit of a cult hero down here, really. Loved watching Barry play. Obviously, Holloway, as mentioned earlier. Paul Gallagher is one that screamed straight away at me. And I'm reluctant to say another one because I don't want to be left with egg on my face about whether or not he actually didn't play for Leicester or not. But I've got it in the back of my mind that Lillian Nallis may have played for Leicester.
Oh no, yes he
as
did.
well.
He did.
He scored a screamer against Leeds.
He did against Leeds for those Leeds fans. That was the season that Leeds went down with us, and that was the season of the. Do you remember the Sky used to do the, what did they call it, where they had the fans, two fans?
The fan cam.
Yeah. And the guy, the Leeds fan, before the game had a T-shirt made up that said Leeds United 4, Leicester 0, and we beat them. I think it was it 4-0 or something?
It was 4-0. That footage is still available online, and it's well worth digging out.
The Leicester fan is actually now living out in the Far East, Thailand, or thing. He manages hotels out there now. Right. Just got married and had a kid. I've got him.
It's a fantastic piece of footage. It's well worth checking if you haven't seen it.
You're crying into your Hovis, son. That has got to be one of the greatest quotes ever. All I will say about the one that I've gone for, I've got to say that isn't Spearing. I hadn't even thought about him. But the gentleman who I've gone for actually has. I have got this hat, and I was actually wearing this last night. It is. I am sorry, Joe. What can I say? Ian Holloway, the man with a quote for every occasion. Look, I think we'll get the nice bit out of the way first. Craig, I'll say nice bit. Look, he was manager when my second son was ball boy for Leicester. Ball boy, not ball boy, mascot. Against away to Burnley, and they drew 1-1, and they scored both goals. And he was talking to me after the match. Nice guy, but didn't really have a clue what he was talking about. Possibly
that can get you a long way these days.
Yes, it does. But is it possibly the right manager at the wrong time? I mean, he took us down to League One.
I'm saying he's a legend at Leicester for all the wrong reasons. You know, he's a record holder, the only manager that's ever taken us down to the third tier. I mean, I've heard him speak.
It's inevitable at some point because we'd nearly gone down under the Levine. The previous 2 or 3 managers, there was no money. It was just a case of when rather than if. He knew it. I mean, he took Blackpool to the Premier League, so he wasn't a bad manager.
No, and I've heard him speak since, and he is almost every time the talk gets around to Leicester, he's apologetic and constantly says what a fantastic club Leicester was, and he let us down. You know, he sort of holds his hands up to just say he obviously nobody wants to get relegated, but it hurt him a lot that he did it, and it's such a fantastic club Leicester, and he let them down. So, you know, I think managers like Holloway, with maybe the exception of Neil Warnock, who can do it for a short period of time, I think their days are numbered now, because I think there's too much power in players now. I think players hold all the power. Players can get managers sacked, and I'm not sure they respond to that kind of up and at them, you know, work rate will get you through kind of manager anymore. I'm not sure. It can get you so far, but I'm not sure there's a place for it in the modern game. I'm not sure, to be honest, how successful Fergie would be in the modern game, because the power is with the players. So nice guy, Ian Holloway, successful, but just sadly it was a bad time for us.
I think it was. I think it was the wrong time. He does wear that hat better than I do, in fairness to him. Joe, he wanted to come to Leicester. That was the thing. And it was nice to actually have a manager that wanted to come to us. That meant that he then wanted to leave Plymouth. And I know he left a sour taste, did he not? Well, I gather on what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, he certainly did, because that, we'd gone through the promotions under Paul Sturrock, where he took us from League Two up to the verge of the Championship. Bobby Williamson came in and finished the job that season. Then we had Tony Pulis come in for one season, and everyone knew why Pulis took the Argyle job, because he was waiting for the Stoke job to become available. And then lo and behold, at the end of that season, off he went to Stoke. And then Holloway comes in, and we had an unbelievable time under Holloway. We really did. Like, it felt like he was one of us, although he's a Bristol lad. It felt like he was one of us. He spoke like one of us. He said all the right things. He was great for PR. Wanted to paint the lighthouse green and white, and he wanted to do this and he wanted to do that. And in the end, it all became hollow words from Holloway. And off he went to Leicester. And it wasn't obviously too long after that Akos Bazaki stuck the knife in, didn't he, on Sky at the King Power. But yeah, it's a weird one, because I think when he left us, we were 4th or 5th, and we were having a great season. He came out afterwards and said, I think it was a Soccer AM interview, for those who remember those days. He came out and he said that the one thing I regret about leaving Plymouth was that everything I said would happen did happen. And anyone can say anything in hindsight, but he was obviously talking about, we had a great squad back then. We had players like David Norris, Peter Halmosi, Akos Bazaki, Barry Hale, Sylvan Ebanks, Blake. We had an unbelievable side, really. When we look back on it now, that team was actually unbelievable. And he knew that the offers were going to come in that January and the summer after. And, whether or not he didn't want to rebuild the squad again, I don't know. But, it didn't work out for him. And we then brought Paul Sturrock back, and we sort of had a couple of stays of execution before we eventually dropped out of the Championship. But he's been back once or twice with other clubs. I remember him coming back with Blackpool a couple of years later, and my word, the treatment he received that day, I don't think I've ever seen an opposition manager receive the treatment he got that day. But he came back. He's spoken. He always speaks very well of Argyle, because he understood. We were talking earlier in jest about the travelling that we do and things. He was a bloke who really, really appreciated every single fan who went to every single game, because he just knew how far it was. And he always speaks highly of the club and fondly of it. And, I think deep down, probably, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but maybe he does regret what he did. Equally, he regrets his time at Leicester not working out as well as he'd have hoped when he took the job. But things happen in football for certain reasons. And,
They do.
if he hadn't left Argyle, if he hadn't taken the Leicester job, he probably never would have gone to Blackpool and had that season in the Premier League. So
Yes.
it's all a bit indirect, but I'm not sure how many times he's been back to Home Park. I don't think Sky will be brave enough to use him on their coverage tomorrow night.
Who knows?
I also don't think Sky have got the budget to send a huge team all the way down to Plymouth on a Friday night. But
well, they picked it. They've picked it.
It would be interesting.
I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to round this up now. Craig, first of all, I don't know if you've got your predictions in the prediction league. I've got to say apologies to everybody that Dave and Brad did try to do the prediction league last night. Unfortunately, there was a problem between StreamYard and YouTube, as sometimes happens. It would happen with Facebook last week, and it couldn't go live. So we're going to be redoing it. I'm going to be joined by a different Craig at 9:00 this evening, and we'll be doing the prediction show. But Craig, therefore, I presume you've got yours in. What are you going for?
Yeah, I haven't got mine in yet. I'll do them after this. But I think my predictions have been suffering from the same glitches, to be honest. So
you have dropped a little bit, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah, they've glitched totally, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm calling foul.
I mean, at least you had a good start. I've not got out the bottom half yet.
Yeah, well, there's still. Oh no, there isn't any time.
No.
I'm gonna go for. I'm torn between two, but I'm going to go 2-1 Leicester.
2-1 to Leicester. Joe.
Heart
is this a heart and
says
head situation?
It is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Heart says we will be gritty, put everything on the line, and we'll get out of it with a 1-1. And you'll see scenes celebrating a draw like probably Leicester have never seen before. The head, unfortunately, says there's an almighty gulf in quality and class in the two squads, and it might be a 2-0 away win. What I do hope for, go very quickly, I saw the table on the left-hand side. You've got plenty of goals in the bank against Ipswich if it is going to be Leeds coming up with you. You don't have to worry about improving your goal difference tomorrow night and ruining ours. So if you do get to 2-0, feel free to take off the star players and bring on some fringe players.
To be honest with you, it's confidence, mate. That's what we're going for. For confidence. Great. Very, very quickly, last question. Heart for Joe was 1-1. You know what I'm going to ask you? A draw's not going to be good enough for us, though. We've got to go for the win tomorrow.
I think we've got to go for the win, but I honestly think every point now, because you can't guarantee what's going to happen. I think Leeds are going to beat Blackburn, but I think Ipswich have got a tough game on their hands over the weekend. They've got Middlesbrough, I think. I know it's at home, but Middlesbrough have got eyes on that playoff. They're a little bit off it at the minute, but they're in decent form. We'd love 3 points, and I think we have to go with the mindset of getting 3 points.
I'm going to leave with this. I'm not going to give you my prediction because I want, you can find that out by watching the show at 9:00 this evening. But I will leave this with this thought. Brian Clough once said, and just coming back to you, Joe. I'm just seeing the comment that's come up. Let me read this out first, actually. Can you ask Joe where he got those curtains?
My retort to that is, why is Aaron not working hard on getting our scripts ready for our next podcast rather than taking the mick out of my curtains?
Good. He's coming to give you moral support. If that's what you call moral support. Very quickly, Craig, where can people find you?
Yeah, just find me on Twitter at Craig Bird.
And Joe?
J, I've got to think now, JM_Bell95, I think it is, but Argo Life 1886 and the Green and White podcast on all your platforms.
Brilliant. And the thought I will leave you both with is something that Brian Clough once said, just coming back to you about the squads, is yes, on paper we had the better squad, but unfortunately football games are played on grass. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I won't say good luck for tomorrow, but good luck for the rest of the season from Saturday onwards. Great, thanks very much.
Cheers,
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, everyone.
Got rid of the wrong one then. Got rid of myself. There we go. Let me make myself big again. There we go. Right. So I've got to say, because I've got to get off and it's going to be 9:00. We've got the next game coming, next show coming up. But please do join us for the watch along tomorrow night, 7:15. We will be there to talk team selection, pre-match, etc. We'll be taking you through the match, half-time assessment, and then full-time post-match, either screaming, shouting, cheering, depending which way the result goes. So that's 7:15 tomorrow. And of course, after that, just a little game against playoff hopeful. Well, I think they're in the playoffs, aren't they? West Bromwich Albion. And like I say, please do join us. We will really do appreciate that. And thank you for watching tonight. If you're new, please do subscribe and smash the likes. It really does help. And if you have been listening via your favorite podcast platform, thank you for lending me your ears. You can have them back now. Take care. Come on, you foxes. 3 points tomorrow. Let's just put the pressure on the other two. Fingers crossed.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You'd better like them too, or I'll be back.
The TalkSport Fan Network is the ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Including Leicester Till I Die, independent analysis and reaction for the Foxes faithful.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
Unbeatable club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Follow the podcast on the TalkSport Fan Network.